Tonight, East Palestine residents explain the physical symptoms that they're still having since the train derailment. But what about the emotional toll this disaster is taking on that community? Joining me now is Criss, the director of the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. Ms. Criss, thanks so much for being here. So tell us what mental health issues you're seeing in East Palestine since this happened.
Well, thanks for having us, and thanks for bringing this part of the topic into the conversation. Really what we're seeing is a trauma response. After a disaster like this, the immediate after effects, we would definitely expect to see fear and anxiety, anger, a lot of other symptoms too. People, having trouble sleeping or concentrating, maybe having a loss of appetite, a lot of other behavioral kind of emotional experiences that come in the direct aftermath of a disaster like this.
I was so struck to hear people talk about how there are 50 trains that are still rolling through East Palestine every day and how unnerving that is to the people there. And so is that PTSD? I mean, when they're hearing the trains and they're having these emotional responses, what can they do about that, and what does that mean?
Sure. It's called re-traumatization. So someone who's survived a trauma is potentially going to have something happen that makes them feel exactly like they did in the moment of that original trauma. I grew up in a small town down the river from East Palestine, and it was a steel town with lots of train tracks. And when I was in East Palestine yesterday, I was talking to people about the experience, and they were saying how they hear every whistle now. And, growing up in a town like that, you don't hear the trains really on a day-to-day basis. It just becomes part of the rhythm and the noise around you. And so they're hearing it, they're having a freeze response, they, have a physical response to that. And so there are things they can do. There are things that the local community has put in place with a lot of attention and support from us since the night of the derailment that can help people as they move through this trauma experience.
One of the things that we heard tonight was all the physical symptoms that people are still having. They are acute. So people are still having bloody noses. Their children are having bloody noses so badly that they need to go to the emergency room. People are still having nausea, headaches, they're vomiting. And yet, all the officials are telling them, well, all the tests for the air and water are coming back clean. I can imagine that is crazy making for people because they know what they're feeling, and that compounds the mental health issue.
Well, I think it does in terms of adding stress to the unknown, right? Part of a trauma experience is not knowing the next predictable thing. And so there's a lot of unknowns right now. People know what they're feeling, they know what they're experiencing, and believing that and honoring that is a really important part of their experience right now, too. And that's why you heard the governor talk about the clinic that was set up and the opportunity for people to get some screenings, get connected to those specialists that might be able to help them really dive into those symptoms that they're experiencing and not just get to the root cause, but also understand how to recover from those and move forward. Part of that clinic, too, is we have some crisis response teams on site. So if people want to talk to someone, to feel the opportunity to really tell their full story, be heard, be believed, and get connected to those supports that might help them for the long haul, that's there as well. And so we know this. We know that this stress is going to be here in a really intense way for the first few weeks and months after this derailment. For many people, it will subside over time as things become more normal. For other people, it might remain intense for a longer period of time, and that would be a good opportunity for them to seek some support.
Criss, really appreciate that, and they need to be prepared that it's going to be weeks or months of experiencing this. Thank you very much for all the information.